And now all you hear is, every time the war on terror is brought up, or these enhanced procedures are brought up, TSA here and TSA there, and if you see something, say something, it all goes back to the underwear bomber. They all say, well, we need it because of the underwear bomber. It's a crutch. It's a crutch for any of these policies at all. So, you can see how it's played into all of this.
But there are a few things we could do to make things better. First, we could deploy the scanning machines that we currently are beginning to deploy in the U.S. that would give us the ability to see what someone has concealed underneath their clothing. That has been vigorously opposed by the ACLU and privacy advocates. The House of Representatives voted to prevent us from using it. But I think now there's been a very vivid lesson in the value of that machinery.
In your current role as a consultant, do you have an interest in body scanners?
We consult with all kinds of firms, including firms that do manufacture body scanners.
You do have some interest in more sales of body scanners.
As well as a lot of other security measures. But I would point out that I've talked about this for probably the last 3 years.
I don't really have any evidence on whether Chertoff was involved, but, it's really suspicious to me that the former head of the Department of Homeland Security now works for body scanning companies, and there's so much money going around. Did somebody do a favor for Chertoff here, that was paid back with some money? I don't know. I think it's entirely possible, but again, I don't have any evidence on this, so I don't know. But yeah, it's highly suspicious that you have former head of Department of Homeland Security peddling body scanning machines and making who knows how much money off of them. Metal detectors were doing fine before the underwear bomber incident, and they were not the reason he got on the flight, obviously. So it's an unreasonable search, in my opinion, because all the body scanning machines are not necessary. They make you show a naked picture of yourself to unknown people, and they might cause you cancer. We don't know. But if you don't do that, you have to opt out. And therefore you have someone feeling you up, looking down your pants and grabbing you between the legs. That's an unreasonable search, so it's definitely a violation of the Fourth Amendment. When I talk to people about this, the main response I get is, well, whatever it takes to make me feel safe, and that's a pretty discouraging response to me, in my opinion, because Americans will just voluntarily give up constitutional rights based on a lie. It's ridiculous and depressing.
Coming up, are you willing to give up a lot of your privacy when you go through security at the airport? How about a revealing full body scan? Would that be okay with you?
It does seem to me that we're becoming a police state, that's for sure. There just seems to be getting more and more and more security, based on whatever the government says. They make a statement, so therefore we need this, or they stage this event, so therefore we need this. And at what point do we not need security? At what point was the security not okay back on 9/11? No matter what you think about the 9/11 events, even if you don't think they were another false flag attack, they could have been prevented entirely. We knew all about them. We knew about the attackers flying in flight schools before this happened, and it could have been prevented. We didn't need new measures from that either. But you see where this goes. The government uses these terrorist attacks not only to take away our rights, but to justify wars that they're definitely using for other purposes, to steal oil, to topple regimes, to steal gold, whatever reasons you believe, to stop competing currencies backed by gold, whatever reasons you think. They're definitely not to liberate people. If they were, why aren't we liberating Mexico? They have all kinds of crazy things going on there now. Why aren't we liberating North Korea? Why is it restricted to these countries in the Middle East that have oil? And now we have, if you see something, say something, which incidentally I did, but you can see where it got me. And talk about these body scanning machines going into bus terminals, train stations, malls, and wherever else. So you can see how they use this. My understanding of the NDAA, and what it does is it allows the U.S. government to detain anyone they want indefinitely if it declares that such person is a terrorist. Now, what's the definition of a terrorist is left solely at the discretion of the President of the United States. So if President Obama declares you a terrorist, the government can arrest you and hold you indefinitely without a trial. They don't even need to tell anyone they're holding you or where. You'll just disappear. That's what the NDAA allows. It's totally out of the playbook of the USSR or Nazi Germany, where the government can just come in and say, hey, you're going to disappear, sorry, and you're gone. And no one knows what happened to you. That's what it allows the government to do. Now, who is a terrorist exactly? Am I a terrorist? Am I a terrorist because I speak out against the government and I've informed the public of a false flag event? I don't know. Am I a terrorist because I was going to testify on the behalf of Abdulmutallab? I don't know. What's interesting, too, is you don't actually have to be a terrorist. The law actually says that you can just be someone that's adding aid of some sort to a terrorist. So, again, I go back to the question, am I a terrorist for being willing to testify on the behalf of Abdulmutallab under the NDAA? Seems likely that maybe I am. Am I aiding a terrorist by telling the government that they're staging false flag events, and therefore, these terrorist groups have a defense to some of these terrorism trials? Maybe I am. Maybe I can be locked up indefinitely. And this is a gross violation of our constitutional rights. It doesn't get any more clear, that you're entitled to due process under the law. You're entitled to a speedy trial. And this doesn't even allow you a speedy trial. It doesn't allow you any trial at all. And they're not even required to tell your family if they've taken you or anything. It's a gross violation of law. It's totally unconstitutional. It's all about power. And what's telling is that I believe 93 out of 100 senators voted for this law, something like that, like 93%. And I have to ask, so what incident could unite them so much that they would pass this clearly unconstitutional law? And to me, the answer is obvious. The answer is that they passed this law not to deal with crazy Islamic Muslim terrorists, but to be able to label anyone in the United States a terrorist to deal with them and just take them off the streets during the coming global unrest that will happen here in the U.S., which I think is inevitable and will happen here very soon. I expect a total economic collapse in the U.S. very shortly, and then we're going to have all kinds of chaos here, and the government passed this law not to deal with the terrorists, but to arrest U.S. citizens and take them off without having to do a trial or give any justification. I think that's why you saw 93 senators out of 100 voting for it. I was previously going to sue the government over the underwear bomber attack for intentional infliction of emotional distress, and I've recently decided not to. And actually, the statute of limitations expired on Christmas Day 2011, so even if I wanted to change my mind now, I couldn't. But I wanted to give the reasons why I've decided not to sue, and there are basically three reasons. One, in late 2011, the government came out with a bipartisan report called Report on Fiscal Responsibility or something like that. But anyway, what this was is a bipartisan panel appointed by Obama to study the future of the economy. And every member on the panel indicated that the U.S. government would collapse economically in no longer than 24 months. And this was written in late 2011, so that puts us in late 2013. Sometimes lawsuits can take several years, and this would be one that could possibly take several years. And I've decided it would be better off to take the time we have left, which is now maybe a year and a half, and instead of me spending a great deal amount of time in this case, but to not put it into that, but to put it into making more money and preparing and saving as much money as I can to leave the country, as Lori and I plan to leave the country by late 2013, probably by the end of 2013.